Hey everybody, it's Tim Heidecker. You know me, Tim and Eric, Bridesmaids, and Fantastic Four. I'd like to personally invite you to listen to Office Hours Live with me and my co-hosts, DJ Doug Pound.
Hello.
And Vic Berger.
Howdy.
Every week we bring you laughs, fun, games, and lots of other surprises. It's live. We take your Zoom calls.
Music.
We love having fun. Excuse me?
Songs. Vic said something.
Songs.
Music.
I like having fun. I like to laugh. I like to meet people who can make me laugh. Please subscribe now.
Hey, Mom and Dad are fighting listeners. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a story coming up a little later in the show. It's from our partners at Macy's. Since 2021, they've partnered with UNCF to provide scholarships to nearly 300 students at historically Black colleges and universities. Because a mind is a terrible thing to waste and a wonderful thing to invest in. And all this month, you can support UNCF by rounding up your Macy's purchase in-store or donating online. Stick around to hear from Calvin, a Macy's Brighter Future Scholar at Morehouse College.
Welcome to Mom and Dad Are Fighting, Slate's parenting podcast for Monday, February 27th. I'm Elizabeth Newcamp. I write the homeschool and family travel blog, Dutch Goose. I'm the mom of 3 littles, Henry, who's 10, Oliver, who's 8, and Teddy, who's 6. We live in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
I'm Jamilah Lemieux, a writer, contributor to Slate's Care and Feeding Parenting column, and mom to Naima, who is almost 10, and we live in Los Angeles.
Today on the show, Jamilah and I will be talking with friend of the show, Travis Nichols. Travis joined us this fall to talk about his experience with his son trying to game youth baseball. Well, he's back, and he just wrote an interesting piece about how youth sports are intermingled with religion and politics. So we'll get into that first, and then we're going to wrap up the show with some recommendations. Don't go anywhere.
It's hard to stick with working out. Up until very recently, I did not have a workout regimen. I've joined gyms, I've taken classes, and I just couldn't get myself to do it regularly. That was until Peloton. I use Peloton constantly, about 5 days a week, to take their classes. All I need for most of them is just a mat. They have so many different classes, from yoga to strength training to high-intensity interval training to boxing. Peloton instructors have a variety of different training backgrounds and styles of motivation that work for people of all fitness levels. You don't have to be a super athlete to enjoy Peloton because there are tons of classes for every level. Whether you exercise daily or you're new to working out, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. Try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial. As a parent, no 2 days are ever the same. And let's face it, sometimes a little extra help goes a really long way. That's where Care.com comes in. Care.com makes it easy to find local, experienced, and background-checked childcare to help manage your family's ever-changing needs and schedule. From nannies and babysitters to daycare centers and tutors, find help for long or short-term support at Care.com. All caregivers who use Care.com are required to complete a background check before they're able to interact with families on the platform. Just go to Care.com and post a job for caregivers to apply. We have a really good babysitter at home, but she's a very busy high schooler, so recently I went on Care.com to search for some backup. I just put in our zip code and our childcare needs, and I found 151 possible matches for a babysitter. Sign up now at Care.com and see why over 3 million families use this amazing platform. Get the help you need to make it all work for your family at Care.com. That's Care.com.
All right, Travis, welcome back to the show. How have you been doing?
Thank you so much. I've been doing great, and it is wonderful to be back here. Thanks for having me.
You wrote this great piece about your attempt to find a basketball league. For listeners who haven't read it, can you give us a quick rundown?
I have twin girls who were 8 at the time. We wanted to have them join this basketball league because they, trying to find things in Metro Atlanta where I live that's both affordable and not like Olympic trial level training is hard. And they had been in a soccer league that they really liked and we really liked as well. And the parents there said, you should try this basketball league. And so we thought, oh, sure, where is it? And then they said it's at the Baptist church. And then I thought, oh, shit. Then the piece is about trying to navigate the sense of what we can participate in that's consistent with our values and when we should pull the plug.
You point out that you guys live in Georgia and the church is kind of deeply tied into so many aspects of life. So what makes its involvement in the sports so different?
Right. Public services, especially things like what I remember as Parks and Rec and community involvement or school involvement in sports, since the late 70s, I guess, and also since the economic downturn, the housing crisis has really contracted. And so private companies and churches have come in to fill the void. And so then they have come in and either had, like I was saying, kind of Olympic level training, where they'll cost thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, or they'll have some other bargain you're supposed to make. And so when churches come in, the bargain can be, we want you to participate, but we're trying to fill the gap of church attendance declining. So we're trying to get you in through, we know you need these services. And so we're trying to get you in, and then maybe we can get you to become members of the church. And, the churches do wonderful things in the community, especially in places like Georgia, where low tax, low service states, they do fill a void. They do wonderful things. They do meal trains. They do lots of different kinds of outreach. I wish, not being a Southern Baptist myself, I wish that there were other options that weren't tied to the churches. But, it is what it is, I guess.
Well, because nothing in life is free, right? Like what you don't pay in money,
Yes.
You're going to pay with something else.
As y'all know, like as a parent, you kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop, whether or not that's if the kid that your kid wants to be friends with turns out their parents are not really the type of people you want to hang out with, or in this case where it was something where it seemed like a really good option and then it turned into, especially as it was around election day. So I'm really thinking about the Christian right and the way that they, in my perception, have, degraded public life in America, and some of the versions of this particular kind of church make life really difficult. And so really thinking about it and then having to make a decision of whether or not I would participate in it and whether or not my kids would.
I just imagine you getting that survey that asked you about your personal relationship with Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that was a moment for sure. I definitely looked around to see where the camera was.
Yes, please tell the story.
Yeah. So some bells went off when it was like this league is run through the Baptist church that's across the street from the county Republican headquarters. And that's painting with a broad brush, but it definitely is one of those things where for me, I was like, oh, maybe not. But I thought, I can give it a try. And I signed them up. And then the commissioner person got in touch and said, we actually need a coach. And I thought, well, it's better me than some Southern Baptist rando to be coaching. So I thought, let's do it. And then I went to the first coaches meeting and I started to be like, oh man, this really, I maybe have really made a wrong decision here. But I was trying real hard because I really, I personally love basketball and the girls seemed like they wanted to do it. But they said, we have devotions that are in the middle of practice and it's not like a whistle goes off and everybody has to sit down and pray, but there is a time then we want everyone to sit down and pray. And so it was like, well, okay, you do actually have a whistle that goes off and everyone has to sit down and pray. And then they said, also, can you fill out this questionnaire for the coaches? And I did. It had all the normal things like, have you taught before? Are your kids in the program? Have you coached before? Other things. And then it said, can you please briefly explain your personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Use the back if necessary. And I don't know what I thought. I think I might have been doing a little self-sabotage maybe, which is known to happen. But I went fast and I just wrote, thanks, it's personal. And I thought, well, maybe. We'll see.
Seems like an okay answer.
Yeah. I mean, looking back, I actually have the paper and I looked at it the other day and I was like, yep, that I can see why that didn't work. And so then time passed, and on election day, the commissioner called me and he said, hey, buddy, what's going on? And, he was nice, but then he said, I do have to ask about this answer that you gave here. You said, thanks, it's personal. And then there was a silence that felt like it lasted a long time. And then he said, I just do then need to follow up and ask, have you accepted Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? And I don't know, I should stop here and say, are y'all familiar with this? I don't know if it's like a sales pitch, but this type of thing. Have you been in such? Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up in Georgia, so.
Right. Yes. You're very familiar.
Also, in Colorado Springs, that it is, I could identify with this so much because in looking for a theater program for our kids, this is what we ran into. Even when you go to the performances, there is this whole part before the show where as a group, everyone comes out on stage and they're going to pray with the audience. It was like, okay, well, it's one thing to attend these shows and be able to say to the kids, like, this is going to happen. Listen, we're a military family. If we go to the movies or the bowling alley on base, they're going to play the national anthem. We're all going to stand up. Like, I'm used to some of these performative things to explain to the kids, this is what's going to happen. You can participate, you can not participate. That's up to you, but we're not going to be rude, right? But there is something so fundamentally different between that and then saying you're going to attend this class, and every day at class, they are going to lead you in these prayers and devotions, which are things that maybe we believe in, maybe we don't believe in, right? The whole purpose of it is to get all of the children to believe in it. And I think that, to me, is kind of the bells, like, what are we saying to the kids? If at home we're like, well, we can make these choices and we want you to personally, decide which of this sits with you and kind of talking about all these things, but then we send them somewhere to have these classes that are giving this message. It's hard, though, because like you, we don't have both theater programs here are tied to religious groups.
Right.
Wow.
I mean, we had a similar thing with theater and a similar thing, and I had done, I'd coached basketball through the Methodist church here, and they had done soccer through it. And it was fine. It was very, and I actually play basketball myself at the Methodist church. And the first time I went, and I'm not a member of the church. I grew up Methodist, but then have not, been back really since confirmation. But I went and I was a little nervous about it. And we're kind of playing. And the one time I stole the ball and get a breakaway and totally doink the layup and then say something really unfortunate very loudly. And then it was quiet. And I thought, well, that's the end of this. But then they were all like, it's okay, buddy. It's all right. And we kept playing. But I did think, should I be doing this if I really feel so much like I have to, police my language for one, but also just try and kind of be who I'm not? And then is that what I'm telling my kids, that they just, you can just hide a little bit in order to get what you want, which is to have, something that's
access.
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly what it is. And it's tough. And I should have known, I think, going into it that it wasn't going to work. But I was, every once in a while you don't learn the lessons. I think it's one of those things, if you ever feel like for me, if I ever feel successful or feel like I know what I'm doing, then, being a parent definitely humbles you immediately. And you realize, oh, yes, I'm a massive failure. And this was one of those moments.
Hope for the best, right? Like, we hope that this won't happen.
Yeah.
Jamilah, have you run into this at all?
I have not. I have to say I am surprised, fortunate, blessed, if you will. In my personal experience, being a Black woman, went to a Black college and has been in, Black community spaces throughout my life, I've definitely engaged with the church, as somebody who was raised outside of church. But we haven't come across any religious sponsored programs for Naima yet. She went to day camp in a church, but it was run by an outside organization. Mm-hmm. I'm curious to know, Travis, how would you have reacted if your girls had a different, you put it to them, like, and they joke about, are we going to have to pray with our coaches? This was like an easy no for them. How would you have reacted if they'd felt differently, if they were like, this is something we really want to do?
It would have been really hard. I think I probably would have still said no, just because I, would have been like, luckily they're still at an age where I can, frame the narrative a little bit, and I can kind of fudge it in a way that, and in this one, I didn't have to do much. I was like, it's a little more like Sunday school. And they're like, ew, no. And then that was it. And they've never been to Sunday school, so they wouldn't know, but I think they read a lot of books in which people complain about Sunday school and other things. It's like a good YA trope. And so if they had really wanted to, I don't know. I mean, that day is coming. There will be things that they'll want to do. I mean, just being here, and I remember growing up middle school and in high school, there definitely was the like, hey, do you want to come to a pizza party on Wednesday? Your friends will be there, and being like, yeah, sure. Oh, wait a minute. No, I don't want to do this. And so there will be some version of that they'll have to figure it out themselves. For now, I mean, it really is one of those, it's hard. I was talking to a friend of mine and saying, I have these friends who are I thought of them as kind of fiscal Republicans, not a lot of them, but there's some. And I'm not sure if they voted for Trump. And he broke in and he was like, oh, they voted for Trump. Those votes came from somewhere. And you just have to not try and lie to yourself about what the values are that are going into a situation, and having to then be like, are you comfortable with it? Does that matter? Is that something that would make you not participate?
I mean, listen, we identify as Christian, but I feel icky about so much of this because to me, like the pizza party, offering things to children of an age in which they are still in that like absorption of everything adults tell them phase.
Definitely.
And then to tie it to these things that kids like, I'm not sure that they yet, like kids of this age versus teens, have the ability, the cognitive ability to separate some of this and be able to say like, okay, I can go to this and then I can see what it is. And maybe it's something I want and maybe it's something I don't want. But at this age, it's like my parents put me here. We're playing basketball. Everyone's praying. I should pray. So that can seem very benign, but it's like, then what are we praying for? Do the prayers become like all of a sudden we're going to slip something in about just men and women, or we're going to not allow these little thoughts that I think can start to take hold? And that's what I always worry about. Is it brainwashing is kind of strong, but maybe it is the right word. Like, are we diving into this area of like dropping these thoughts in by a trusted adult that we of the parents have said, like, go play basketball. This is your coach. They're great. Listen to them. And then they're calling you to the center to say like, today we're going to pray with this on our hearts or pray with this thing. And this thing is something that you have a major issue with.
Yeah. And I will say to the guy's credit, he didn't let me get away with, sort of being like, well, maybe I can do it and just, have my fingers crossed behind my back or roll my eyes or whatever. Because he did say, he was like, well, I'm worried that there might be things that we want you to say that you would feel uncomfortable saying. And I was like, like what? And he was like, oh, I don't know. But I mean, there are scriptures that we want you to focus on. And I was like, so do I have to say word for word what you're giving me? And he's like, oh, no. But we do have a script we'd like you to follow. And I was like, okay, that is a no. Like, that's going to be a no. Yeah. But I mean, and it was something where it was like, I thought, again, because I thought maybe if I was coaching that I could kind of get in between it and be able to, really fudge it and kind of take advantage of the program, to be real about it, because it's not what they wanted to do. They want to recruit members. There's a bunch of people who have kind of vaguely Christian feelings, but don't go to church. And that's not good for the organizations that need members. And so they're like, but we also know that they need things that are okay for kids, that aren't super serious, that aren't super expensive, and that might present as if they have kind of this benign, love, accepting message. But then it turns out it's a recruitment device.
I like to do a little mental litmus test all the time where I think, like, what would the reaction be if this were run by a different religion? Right? Like, what if the basketball camp were run by the Buddhists or whatever, right? Insert any religion or group that America tends to misunderstand and make fun of, and I think a lot of times I'm like, wow, people would be really upset if this were the only thing available.
I mean, I do actually want to, if it's okay, to jump back to Jamilah. What do you think what would you do if your kids were really into something and you didn't pick it, but then they came back and they're like, we love this. This is actually run by who now? Oh, the Baptist Church. Would you be like, let's go for it?
That's tricky. I think it depends on what the merits of the program were otherwise. Like if she was really getting an experience and some knowledge and coaching that we didn't have any other way to access, I would consider giving it a shot. I feel strongly that my daughter wouldn't be influenced by the religious piece, that the conversations we've had here, have been sufficient, and that, she's kind of strong in how we've, she's free to explore faith as she sees fit. We're not raising her with a particular religion, just with spirituality. But I don't think of her as somebody who would go and get indoctrinated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think would be my primary fear, that my child will want to. But then again, I don't know. I mean, these sort of Christians, no, I probably could not, knowing that they're across the street from the Republican headquarters. And
that might be a fact of geography or an accident of geography. I don't know. That might be nothing, but it seems significant to me. Sorry, go ahead.
If I can trace a through line between this particular group of people and values that I'm staunchly against, then no, I don't think I could do it. If it was just a matter of being around churchy people and being exposed to churchy culture, I think maybe I could tolerate it.
Yeah. And I think that's how I normally approach it. And then this just happened to tip over the line into something different.
Travis, do you think if you hadn't signed up to coach, you guys might be playing in this league?
Well, see, that's very scary. I don't think so. I think we would have seen it. I mean, and again, to my wife's credit, she's like, "What are you doing?" From the start, she was like, "This, no." Again, we have the parents that we were with in the soccer program that we really liked. It was on their recommendation, and I still, really like them and trust them. And it was just something where it was like, oh, I wasn't picking up the signals. There's also that, like every once in a while, somebody like tells you something in code that you don't quite realize until later that you're like, oh, I see why that emphasis was right there on that particular word. And there was a little of that where they're like, well, I don't know if it's quite right for you. And I was like, what are you talking about? Right for me. Everything's right for me. Yeah. It's basketball. It's in the gym. It's got people. Yeah, let's do it. And then it was like, oh, right.
It's just, I think, like, I read the piece and I'm just like, I mean, again, I knew this is happening, but it just feels like just another thing I now have to, like, have spidey senses for.
Right. But we all find ourselves in situations where you have to think, this doesn't quite seem right. Am I going to stand up and say it and be able to walk out of a situation and not feel guilty about it and be able to have that courage and self-esteem? Ultimately, that's a little bit of the line that I felt like it was crossing of something of being like, no, that's important to know when to say I quit and when to say I'm not going to do this.
Yeah. I think this is a good place to end this. We'll, of course, put a link in the show notes to your piece, and all of you listening, you should definitely go check it out. Travis, can we convince you to hang around for recommendations?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, Travis is going to join us for recommendations.
This podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you can be doing right now. Getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy and you can save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save nearly $700 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles on your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at Progressive.com to join the over 29 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $698 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2021 and May 2022. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
This podcast is brought to you by Slate Studios and Macy's. Hey y'all, what's up? It's your girl, Lene Vanee. I'm a writer, creator, and a change maker. And take it from me, when you set out to change the world, it really helps to know someone has your back. That's what Macy's is doing with UNCF, funding scholarships at historically Black colleges and universities so students like Calvin can thrive.
I am Calvin Bell III, a junior at Morehouse College. I'm very passionate about the criminal justice system. As someone who knows firsthand through my father, he lost his life through the criminal justice system. It taught me to be a scholar activist and use my scholarship and research to learn how can I advocate for those who are incarcerated and behind bars. Being a Macy's UNCF Brighter Future Scholar has opened up even more doors for me. I'm looking towards grad school as well as law school to ultimately be able to be a public scholar, to teach classes around political theory, political philosophy, as well as carceral studies. when you are buying your suits, shirts, shoes at Macy's, you're doing something even bigger than that. You're reinvesting into the minds of students like myself.
Now's the time to help more students like Calvin. All this month, when you round up your purchase at Macy's or donate online, you'll help fund UNCF scholarships for HBCU students across the country. Find out how Macy's is creating brighter futures for all at macys.com/purpose.
This episode is brought to you by The Adventures of Cairo. Meet Cairo. He's a curious and friendly 8-year-old who's navigating life and school in the big city with little help from his parents, his big brother, and his friends. And even though being a kid is hard work sometimes, you can have a lot of fun learning along the way. From Wondery, The Adventures of Cairo is a podcast that brings you stories for the entire family about kindness, courage, and responsibility. In the episode Black is Beautiful, Cairo is hitting the road with his dad and grandpa to visit the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. If you're thinking not many 8-year-olds dream of spending the entire day in a museum, you would be right. But Cairo quickly learns this trip is different and discovers there's much more to Black history than he realized. Each episode of the show is centered around Cairo learning a new skill. The podcast focuses on relatable short stories containing good, simple lessons for younger kids to learn and implement. Follow The Adventures of Cairo wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen ad-free on the Amazon Music or Wondery app.
We're back and ready to hear what you're both loving this week. Jamilah, will you go first?
Absolutely. So I've mentioned a while ago that Naeem and I are in a baking thing. We bake. It's just our thing. It's not even a phase anymore. We just bake. We try to bake once a week. And 2 weeks in a row, possibly going on a third, we've made the same cake, and I want to recommend it. It's very, very easy. Strawberry cake. I think it's Betty Crocker. We cut up real strawberries, frozen strawberries, and put just a little, like half a cup in the mix. So there's some actual strawberries in the cake. And we've been making chocolate icing from scratch. So box cake mix, which I've mentioned before, add a box of pudding mix to it. It really does something magical to it. I don't know what, but it's just so much richer and just better than like a typical box cake mix. Strawberry box cake mix with a box of vanilla pudding and chocolate icing. It is such a delicious flavor combination. It's so good. We're obsessed with it.
How are you making the chocolate icing? Assume you're me and you don't know what making it from scratch.
Super easy. I Googled a chocolate frosting recipe off the top of my head, and I cut the recipe in half. I do about 2.5 cups of powdered sugar, 1/4 cup of cocoa powder, maybe 3 tablespoons of butter, 3 tablespoons of milk, and a tablespoon of vanilla.
Yum.
And it's super easy to make. It frosts the whole cake. There'll be plenty, believe it or not. It won't look like it, but there's enough for the whole cake. And it's so good. And you can put strawberries on top if you'd like. We did that the first time we made it. You could put a few in between the 2 layers of the cake. But chocolate strawberry cake, really, really, really good.
This one sounds like I can manage. So I'm going to try. And
this is
I'll
an
let
easy
you guys
one.
know. Jamilah will, of course, get a picture. I always send her a picture.
Please do.
She's always very encouraging. Okay, Travis, what are you recommending?
Well, totally in the same spirit, I am recommending not necessarily for the kids or something that everybody can partake in, but there's a new edition of Kafka's Diaries. Absolutely loving. And I traveled back to where I'm from in Iowa recently, and reading it really helped me with that sort of uncanny feeling, but then also just the totally bizarre descriptions of family events and other things. Coming to Kafka's Diaries as a parent, I felt like, oh, there's nothing surrealist about this. There's nothing exaggerated. This is just how it is. He is a realist. It's like every description of every bizarro thing, and him feeling like he has 2 different planks drilled into the side of his head and all these different things. I was just like, yeah, Franz, me and you. I feel you.
So those of us who haven't revisited that since they were forced to read it in school should revisit
Yeah,
it.
check it out. It's funny. Turns out that it might say more about me than about the book itself, but I think, take a whirl with old Franz Kafka's Diaries, parents.
I'm gonna bake the cake and that's what I'm gonna send you guys a picture of. Me with the book and a piece of this cake.
There you go. Or you could listen to the audiobook while you bake the cake. That would be an experience.
That's much more my style. Okay, I like this way better. I am going to recommend having a car sing-along and dance party with your kids, no matter how old they are. Like, blast it at the stoplight, whatever they want to hear, roll down the windows, and just be completely ridiculous. We had a rough start the other morning. I had to get all the kids into the car, and it was like we were just in that mood. And when I plug in my phone, it like automatically starts playing whatever was left. And I think Trust Fall from Pink came on, and Henry in the back, who's 10, yelled, "Turn it up." And so to be kind of funny, I turned it like all the way up, and he was dancing like crazy, which got his little brother to dance. And then Oliver was dancing, and I just rolled down the windows, and we had a great time going through the neighborhood, and a couple of the parents were out walking their kids from school. And, it just totally changed the whole mood. And so now that has been, the last couple of days has been a thing as we leave our driveway, the 10 houses between our house and where we meet the main road. We just like blast, totally ridiculous. Super fun. Give it a try. You can play anything you wanted, whatever comes on.
I love
when
it.
you turn on the car. Well, that's it for the show. Travis, thank you again so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
This episode of Mom and Dad Are Fighting is produced by Rosemary Belson and Mara Curry. Alicia Montgomery is VP of Audio at Slate. For Jamilah Lemieux, I'm Elizabeth Newcamp. Thanks for listening.
It's hard to stick with working out, but with a variety of products and classes, Peloton makes finding the motivation easy. Peloton has the best playlists and tons of different musical genres. Whether you're in the mood for a 90s pop ride or a soulful power walk, Peloton's got you covered. And whether you exercise daily or you're new to working out, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. Try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.
It's hard to stick with working out, but with a variety of products and classes, Peloton makes finding the motivation easy. Peloton has the best playlists and tons of different music genres. Whether you're in the mood for a 90s pop ride or a soulful power walk, Peloton's got you covered. And whether you exercise daily or you're new to working out, Peloton can help you achieve your fitness goals. Try Peloton risk-free with a 30-day home trial. New members only. Not available in remote locations. See additional terms at onepeloton.com/home-trial.